Hey everybody, Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share my full review, the digitally digested segment for the Dell XPS 18. This 18.4-inch all-in-one PC also happens to be an 18.4-inch tablet. Running Windows 8.1, you really have no compromises with this experience as long as you understand that what's inside the XPS 18 is essentially an Ultrabook. You've got an Ivy Bridge processor, whether you're going with any of the three different configurations, which are i3, i5, and i7, all low voltage processors. This has not been refreshed yet. I do anticipate a refresh in the works, and I'll be talking about pricing, and that's part of the reason that we're looking at a wide selection right now of at least what Microsoft considers in their own store the best all-in-one experiences currently available for the Windows 8.1 environment. And that's why I'm sharing all of these competing products when really trying to emphasize how the XPS 18 is unique, which you will see in a moment. But configurations aside, again, Ultrabook innards drive this entire experience. You get a full OS, and on top of that, you get a device that actually can move. It is a mobile all-in-one. So rather than being the typical all-in-one that is clean looking and really compact and gives you great performance for form factor, and really is a computer that anyone in the family can use, great for guests as well, the XPS 18 wants to be more than that. It also wants to be a mobile device, and that's why it has a built-in battery that gives you 4 to 5 hours of usage and really does become a mobile device, even though traditionally all-in-one computers certainly are the farthest thing from being mobile. So with that said, in terms of pricing, I'm going to quickly just show the different models that Dell sells directly. I have them right here on my Nexus 7. And you can see the very first model right there as I accidentally load that up. Go ahead and back that up there. You can see that very first model is the i3 configuration, and that's priced at $899.99. Now, keep in mind that Dell does have a lot of coupon action, and pricing is never really firm with them. That's one of the reasons they at least have been successful in the past. You can bump up to the i5 configuration, $1399.99, and then the i7, $1499.99. All different retailers, such as Best Buy, do sell pre-configured machines like this. The one you're looking at here is from Microsoft Store. That's one of the reasons I'm showing you what else Microsoft Store considers best in class, as I mentioned earlier. So a wide variety, but before I actually start looking at the competition, let's look exactly at the model we have here, which is the i5, as I mentioned before, 3rd gen Intel low voltage processor, complemented by some pretty beefy specifications. You're not getting desktop performance. That's something that you should be aware of. A lot of other all-in-ones do provide that, especially at the $1,350 price point. The Microsoft Store does include the optional $100 charging dock, which I'll also be talking about. You can see it's right now in use. The tablet or all-in-one, it's really more of a tablet in my opinion, is docked on it, and you can see the LED right there letting you know that it is actively charging the machine. It's based around a magnetic Pogo system. Pretty cool. I'll get to that later. But in terms of what the machine looks like, of course I have it in front of you, but pretty good just to quickly glance. The different tablet modes, it does have built-in feet for when you aren't using the optional stand. If you buy this directly from Dell, it will not come with that charging dock. And I'll also be talking about where the charging dock comes up short, in my opinion, later on in the review. But those feet that are on the back of the system really do allow this tablet, as I mentioned, to go mobile, whether you want to use it tabletop or on the bed, on the couch, and really actually go into productivity rather than just watching, consuming content. It's ready for both. And because it weighs 5 pounds, it really is practical. It's a hair over 5, but I'm going to keep referencing 5 because that's the reality of the situation, for me at least. So let's take a look at those tech specs. I mentioned the 18.4-inch display, and it is a full HD LED backlit IPS True Life display, 1920 by 1080, and you do have 10-finger multi-touch support, which is fantastic. I mean, this is one of the key differences between Windows machines that tried to be touchscreen environments in the past and what we presently have with this hybrid, which I believe is really the embodiment besides some of the other hybrid systems out there that try to be both tablets and laptops. this is really the ideal of what Windows 8, besides Surface Pro, in fact, you could call this Surface Pro's bigger brother, in my opinion. This really is what Windows 8 is all about. The Core i5-3370U is a little bit old, no question about it, but that's where Dell started. Haswell will come. That will ensure better battery life. You've got 8 gigs of DDR3 1600 megahertz RAM, a 500 gig hard drive that's 5400 RPM. Nothing crazy, but good for battery life and relatively solid, at least in my experience so far. 32 gigabyte SSD for providing that SSD-like overall performance through caching. In terms of the OS, I already mentioned you do have Windows 8. At least from the Microsoft Store, you will have to update to Windows 8.1. Dell, I would assume at this point, is shipping with 8.1 pre-installed. Again, this is an all-in-one, even though I see it more of as a tablet that just can be used as an all-in-one, really more as a secondary feature, and that may sound odd, but it'll become clear through the course of the review. No optical drive. You do have an 8-in-1 card reader, which I love, the fact that you've got a full SD card reader on here. It really is great for photography, Lightroom, things of that nature. Nothing too heavy because, again, this is an Ultrabook really at heart, even though it's posing as an all-in-one. So you do have to respect the limitations of what you have under the hood, even though you do have that extra boost in RAM, hard drive capacity, and a lot more flexibility than a lot of other Ultrabooks have, especially when you consider the size of the screen and the weight class. This thing is just unmatched, and that's part of why I like it so much. It does have flaws, but again, show me another product that's really similar. Things will come out, but right now this product is alone. Waves Max Audio Pro, that's not really anything too much there to discuss. In terms of graphics performance, we have the Intel HD 4000, which is solid. I've already done a demo of it. This is going to allow you to run a lot of older titles and a lot of fun games in general through Steam and other services that simply in the past you wouldn't be able to run on a laptop, let alone an all-in-one that's using Ultrabook parts. So very cool. If you haven't already taken a look at the gaming demo, I do recommend it because this is, in my opinion, a preview of, if Dell is wise, a whole nother level of all-in-one console concept for PC gamers, especially people looking to replace the giant old gaming laptops that they're accustomed to trying to use, because it's very easy to bring along your own keyboard and mouse and have a device like this that weighs less than those traditional systems do. But until Dell actually beefs up the specifications, this is all just wishful thinking. 2 USB 3.0 ports. Right now you can see I'm actually using them, and that's because I'm using my own keyboard and mouse. I'll be showing you the included Logitech keyboard and mouse, which are solid, but not using them because I want to be able to actually show them in detail in this review. In terms of battery life, they say up to 4 hours. I've been able to get a little bit more, believe it or not. It all depends on really what you're doing and brightness settings with the display. I mean, the display is the hog like any other device, especially a PC in general. Integrated webcam is fine. There is nothing on the back of this, so don't expect a rear webcam. Again, this is designed to be an all-in-one PC, not a tablet, so that's one of those clear differentiating factors, at least when it comes to the XPS 18. In terms of wireless, a little disappointing because you do not have dual band here. I wish there was, that you can customize and do different things, but at least in this i5 pre-configuration, you're not going to get dual band. You do still have wireless display capability, so in the event you want to stream, that is there, and that is definitely a critical thing considering the XPS 18 has no video out. So consider the wireless display your video out. Of course, you can also go through a USB-based solution, but it's really just a matter of personal preference, and also what kind of quality you're really looking to achieve when we talk about video out, wireless or USB. In terms of Bluetooth, it is there. I believe the current version is 3.0 on here. As you can see, the dimensions, and really just supporting that 18.4-inch display. And then you do have a bit of bezel, but really not a lot considering the size and weight of this machine. A little over 5 pounds, as I mentioned before. Of course, black is the color, and that's pretty much it. Nothing really else to point out here. Windows Experience Score, they do list. This is another reason I like the Microsoft Store. They also do a clean install. If you haven't shopped here before, it's definitely something to consider, especially when things are on sale. And you can see pretty solid overall specifications, even though this again is not running any notebook equivalent hardware, because all-in-ones these days really don't even necessarily use any desktop hardware. It's all about notebook hardware going into a desktop form factor, and it has been for years, frankly. But a really nice machine. I've enjoyed my use so far, and pretty much if you look at reviews online, you're going to see people are pleased with what they get out of this because it is unmatched. You can see the keyboard and mouse, which I'll be showing you in a moment, and just Dell and Microsoft focusing on the fact that, again, this is unlike anything else that you've ever used. It's just a fun computer. That's my best way of putting it. When you think of mobile displays and then the fact that this actually has a legitimate set of hardware inside of it to really do some actual work with and even light gaming, it's really impressive. It's basically something out of the future to a degree, especially when you compare it to other all-in-ones. You know, I do have a 24-inch Sony all-in-one that isn't too old, and this just makes it look like a dinosaur because of the size, the weight, the fact that it has battery life. Yet, again, no video out directly, but considering this is everything in a mobile package, I don't know if you really need that. It is a matter of personal preference. That aside, I'm nowhere near my router, and that's something I want you to know. This is meant to move, as I keep mentioning, and performance is really good. Let's go ahead and jump back. I am not in the traditional Internet Explorer. You may have noticed we are right now in tablet mode, so I'm using Internet Explorer in the Metro UI. And an example right here, right now, Microsoft Store has the i7 version, exact same specifications on sale for $1,000. So definitely a better deal than anything you're going to get at Dell. And in my opinion, right now, if you're wondering, the XPS 18 is a winner if you're in the market for this sort of device. Ultrabook, very flexible, but again, really very little compromise for a unique machine that generally you would be relegated to what I'm about to show you. So the Tab 21, very cool concept, very similar to what we're looking at here. Key difference is that you really can't take it anywhere, far too heavy, and frankly, even though it does have that Haswell processor going for it, that's about it. In terms of the actual pixel density, clearly because we're at 18.4 here, as opposed to 21.5 inches with the Tab 21, you're doing better with the XPS 18, and I have seen them both side by side. And in my opinion, as much as I like Sony, Dell has a better product here. Also, look at pricing. I mean, it is relative because it's more expensive to go with the XPS 18, and you are paying again for that engineering and design. Again, the Tab 21 is a really nice machine, and if you don't need something that's mobile, it is a good value. You can look at HP's Envy Recline lineup, another solid one, again, priced well, a larger display. You do get Haswell. Again, pretty much, I won't say exactly the same specifications, but the same approach in terms of 8 gigs of RAM and giving you some space when it comes to hard drive, and also caching through an SSD. And it does have a lot of flexibility, but again, not a mobile device like the XPS 18. You have the Rove, which is aimed at being mobile and is less expensive, but the quality is nowhere near what you're getting with the XPS 18. And I mean, this is part of why I can continue to go over it. Also, weight. I want to show you that. I mean, this is HP's mobile concept of a all-in-one, because again, it works on this hinge design stand. But if we go to the actual specifications, you're going to see the weight is just a joke compared to what we've got, again, in an 18.4-inch XPS 18, 11.95 pounds. So 12 pounds or 5 pounds. You see where I'm going with this. There simply is nothing else like it. And with battery life, less battery here, less in terms of just about everything. Although you do get the refreshed hardware, keep in mind the XPS 18 will be refreshed. In my opinion, will only get better of it when it does get that revamped hardware. In fact, as I mentioned earlier, I'm really hoping that Dell will take this to the next level and give us specifications that will allow this to be more of a powerful XPS 18 than it currently is, rather than just an Ultrabook in an all-in-one form factor like this. But there's still so much to like here. And so much you can do with it that a traditional all-in-one, you know, we always thought of it as really being the desktop replacement. But in today's day and age, where so much of at least, you know, the family computing and general tasks we need to take care of at home when away from the office don't require so much horsepower, that's where a machine like this shines, because it does have everything you pretty much need to get all of the necessities done. You don't really want to do video editing with this, but you can. It won't be a great experience, but it is feasible. Lightroom, as I mentioned, Premiere will run, but in the same way that games will run that you shouldn't necessarily be running, if that makes any sense at all. But definitely more horsepower here than from a standard, bottom or even middle of the road Ultrabook, because of that extra RAM and hard drive and SSD complementary components basically in the lineup. The Tap 20, which is really the most direct comparison, they're now selling for $700 here. Also not refreshed. We're dealing with actually a slower, an older generation processor than the one found in the XPS 18. But again, the pitch is the same. But if I take you to tech specs, you're going to see again the point that I keep making over and over again, that this thing is almost 12 pounds, 11.46. So the XPS 18 has the market cornered. Also, battery life, again, nowhere near that 4 hours, which, again, I've also seen 4 to 5. So in a class by itself, hopefully 16 minutes in, that's really clear. Now, in terms of overall performance, I just like what I see here. The machine runs as it should. Performance is very solid. And whether you're using the tablet mode right now, and by the way, the touchscreen is fantastic. You can't really use, it's not pressure sensitive, so no Wacom here, no N-Trig. But if you want to use a stylus, a capacitive one, go ahead. You can also paint with this with different brushes. I mean, really a lot of applications. That's where it's a fun machine. And because it's so lightweight and can move and go anywhere, this really isn't relegated to the traditional hindrance of an all-in-one. This can go to any room in the house. I personally love it again for photography and HD video playback. It's something where if I want to show someone something, a traditional 10-inch tablet is great. Now we've got 12-inch tablets making their way out. My Duo 13 is really the best of everything still, in my opinion. But for people who don't have that, the XPS 18 is a fantastic option, because here you've got something mobile that you can do presentations on, show clients just about anything, and do it in style and with a very high-quality screen and performance to match, and at a price that, while high, again, when you look at all of these competing products, they just don't compete. That's really the reality here. And I'm not going to begin to compare this to 27-inch devices or anything like that, because that's absurd. It's not a comparable product. But let's move away from the comparison, because again, as I said, the XPS 18 is in a class of its own. I really like it. In fact, this is something I personally want to get for myself, just because, again, it marries a mobile display, an 18-inch tablet, traditional zero compromise Windows computing, not zero, but at least for, again, the traditional tasks, nothing too power hungry, into a form factor that is mind-boggling and really can go outside of the house. There are cases designed for this. I may link one in the description besides the XPS 18 itself. So a lot to like. Let's go ahead and browse somewhere else. Show you a little bit of the performance here. And you can see things just move really well. Hopefully nothing too bad here. Royal Caribbean, people getting sick. News is never uplifting, generally speaking, but Louis C.K., we didn't know he was Latino. Well, some of us didn't. But anyway, it's something where you're going to feel like you are using a powerful machine, in my opinion, even though it doesn't have that dual-band Wi-Fi. So I really like the performance here. It's something where you're going to feel like you are using any other all-in-one, except the form factor, the touchscreen, and just the overall look. It's so clean. The Pogo charging is really as seamless as you could possibly want, and that's another thing that I really like. I highly recommend picking up the optional dock. I wish it had more features, meaning outputs. When I think of the dock for Surface Pro, I wish we had a dock like that for this. It does articulate, which I'm going to show you in a moment, but beyond that and the charging, there's nothing else to it, really. It's quite heavy. made of what I can only assume is some sort of steel or metal in general, and it just, it works. It charges the device relatively quickly, but if you're going to be using it on the stand all the time, you're not really going to be too concerned about charge times. But the beauty is that at any time, you really can just pick this up and go, and that's what I love about it. And you can see it kind of just grabs it a little bit magnetically, and then the LED is right back on, and you're back in business. The device is charging. So another website, we'll go over to Dell. Not that that's so interesting. And I showed you before, they are pricing these high. Dell tends to do that. They like to show you, retail out of the gate because they are a bit of a wholesaler, to say the least. And that's why they do what they do. Now, I don't think they have one up here. Nope, they don't right now. But they will show us the variety. And again, the XPS 18 is the only one in its class. The 23 lends from that design, but it's not a tablet. It's not going mobile. And then that's where you see the XPS 18. And then we slide into the 27, where you are getting desktop-like performance, or I should say really are. But the XPS 18 isn't trying to achieve that. Again, it's more of a family PC. It could go in the kitchen, bedroom, living room. Great for guests, as I said earlier. Gaming, I already showed off. I've mentioned what it can and cannot do. Do not expect to play current titles on this unless you're running it in 720p and with everything set to low. And even then, things might be a little bit dicey, so you have to keep that in mind. Very highly reflective screen. I don't know if you can see me waving right now. I think you can. You can definitely see some of me, and that's because it is high gloss. That's really my only nitpick with the display. That's something Dell likes to do. There are reasons for that, though, and that's about eye strain and clarity, among other things, when you're looking at text. So I'm not going to harp on that. Now, in terms of actual overall color accuracy and everything, it's just solid. It's not the best display I've ever seen, but as I said before, pretty gorgeous considering, again, that this is such a slim package. It's all about that footprint and thinking they would have to make more compromises than they actually have. Let me go ahead and show you the mouse and keyboard, which I have used not a whole lot, but enough to comment on. You can see right here, Logitech Mouse, really basic. You have forward and back buttons here on the left and right for web browsing. Power button right here on the bottom. It's a decent mouse. I mean, considering it's included and it's actually made by Logitech rather than a no-name warehouse, somewhere, or factory, I should say, that's definitely nice. It certainly means that Dell had more interest in making this a premium product than they maybe do with just about anything else. And then when we look at the actual keyboard, this really impressed me a lot more than the mouse. In fact, I could see ditching the mouse but retaining the keyboard. You have a very similar keyboard that you would find with any other XPS laptop or desktop system when you get an included, or excuse me, not included, but a upgraded XPS branded keyboard. But just really nice, dedicated number pad. Makes me feel like it's ready to be a gaming machine, which is why I did a gaming demo. Of course, wish there was an actual dedicated graphic solution, but everything's here that you could possibly want as the display is changing colors there in the background. No backlighting, but really not a big deal. And what's great about both the keyboard and mouse is that the wireless transmitter for these Logitech devices is built into the XPS 18. So very cool. You do not need to hook up any sort of USB key or dongle like I've got set up there in the left corner right now, hogging the two USB 3.0 ports. The reality is that if you stick with at least the keyboard, which I would recommend doing because there's really no reason to dislike it, then you're good to go. The mouse, definitely I would upgrade in my opinion. As much as I like to say, hey, it's great that they gave us Logitech, this leaves a lot to be desired. It performs fine, it's just quite frankly junky in terms of the way it feels. You can see my desktop is relatively bare for good reason. Just going through demo, and that's what I've done here. You can use this as a full desktop. That's what we're looking at now, and it works perfectly well. I mentioned Lightroom performance is solid. In terms of video editing, I really wouldn't do it, but of course there are those of you out there that will, and it will work. It's just expect encode times to be exceedingly long, and that's just the performance you'll get from any Ultrabook. But the fact that this thing is totally mobile is the beauty. Now let me actually start to move it around. I already showed you guys that when I lift it up, obviously the LED goes off because it's no longer charging. Let's spin this entire machine around. In fact, I may pull out the USB keys safety first here, just to make sure I don't clip anything in the process, because we are going to go to a tablet view in a second here. But as I turn it sideways, you can really see that profile, and I'll even back the camera up a little bit more, and you can just see that the profile is really slim. I mean, I think it's 0.77, something like that, so not even an inch thick at its thickest point. And the base, again, very solid. The wire I don't have snaked into its holder right now, which essentially hides it and takes it out that back area, which I'll show you in a moment. The power light right there, the LED light that flanks the power button. Below that, you can see we've got a speaker grill. I am going to actually take this off and give you a closer look, but that was just to, again, really show off the profile of this machine. And it's sexy. I mean, there's no other way of putting it. If I could ever say that a machine looked great and really had fantastic lines and, you know, makes everything else kind of look dated and just behind, the XPS 18 accomplishes that. Great industrial lines, simple, straightforward, functional. It's just really a game changer. And as I keep mentioning, it's what I've personally been waiting to see come out ever since Microsoft made a strong push to integrate touch. So on the back of the machine, you can see we've got, as I bring it a little bit closer, a bit of a rubberized finish up here along the top, plenty of torque screws all over the device. It is user upgradable, by the way, for those of you curious. Dell does encourage it. They do not frown upon it. But I personally am quite content with what we've got right here out of the box, at least in this configuration. This is plastic still on the stand. Disregard it. The finish is matte for those of you curious. You can see right there. I've left it on because this is a review unit. The point is that the back is solidly constructed. Some people thought it was plastic, including myself. It seems to be more than that. I wouldn't go as far as saying a magnesium alloy. You can see you've got the feet right here that are rubberized. They just flip right out, and those are what basically allow you, as I showed earlier, to take this in and out of two different modes when it's on its own. And when you purchase this on its own, you don't have the stand, so you will be relying on the feet. Serial number, all of that information, good stuff is actually tucked there. Some creative design. Again, just everything about this machine speaks to creativity, in my opinion. In terms of the actual stand, which I'm going to show you right now, because what I'm going to do is remove the XPS 18, take it out of the picture for a moment. And the fact that I can just lift that up so easily is part of what is so cool about this machine in general. I mean, try doing that with any other all-in-one. But you can see the stand right here. Again, heavy, has that Pogo Port at the bottom. Actually, I've got to put I have the XPS 18 right now on my lap. I'm going to go ahead and relocate that slightly so I can get a better grip on this to show all of you. And basically, you can see right here, there is the Pogo Port and a bit of magnetic action going on there, so that when you place it down on the dock, it actually picks it up. In terms of your range of motion, pretty flexible. You know, it's not groundbreaking, but definitely allows you to use the XPS 18 while on stand in several different ways. I mean, that's the whole idea of giving you the different viewing angles, whether you're, again, using the touchscreen actively or in a presentation style mode or just traditional desktop computing. In terms of the power plug, you can see right there, it does have a LED in order to indicate that it is active, and then it tucks right into basically a female port right there, and you can see the wire snake there, and essentially it just lines up and goes out. It's a tail, and that's it. The cleanest looking all-in-one pretty much that I've ever seen in my life. And then the fact that the tablet, and I'll keep calling it that because it is, can just be picked up and taken away is what makes the XPS 18, so cool. Now in terms of the body of this computer, as I bring it back into frame, it is pretty giant, but again, the weight really makes it manageable. I mean, I'm one-handing it right now, and try doing that with any other all-in-one. Let's go ahead and just, again, go around the body of the system. It is rubberized pretty much around the entire system, and that's because they do realize that you pretty much could end up posturing this in a variety of ways, like I am right now in portrait. You know, it doesn't really have to stay in landscape. I'm trying to get this wire out of the way. And that's what's also really cool about it. You know, I don't recommend trying to do this because that won't work. But if you have a stand that is feasible, you could, you know, put this in portrait. You can use this stand also in portrait, although it is not recommended. In terms of the back, also I want to point out, you may have noticed all of the ventilation here. If you're wondering how hot this gets, I mean, when you push it like any Ultrabook with this sort of thickness and the fact that it incorporates everything, I mean, less a keyboard, it does get warm, no question about it, but you're not going to have this on your lap, so it's really not an issue. If you do have it on your lap, I would avoid extended periods, but it's not a warning because it's dangerous here. It's just a warning because it's not wise to do or healthy with any machine. But ventilation all along the bottom, and it does flank the feet as well, and you can see right there along side the Core i5 and Windows logo right there. We've got the SD card slot right here. An 8-in-1 reader, as I mentioned before. Love that. And that's something I wish was on more tablets. The fact that we've got it here on an 18.1-inch machine that really runs Windows 8.1 makes it even more intriguing. You've got a volume rocker because, after all, even though this is an all-in-one, it is a tablet, as I've continued to say. One of your two stereo speakers. And there is a bit of a subwoofer on this, believe it or not. The audio isn't amazing, but it's still pretty solid. Your XPS branding here, as well as, of course, in the center, the traditional Dell logo. And that's pretty much it. I've showed the ventilation, the Torx screws. I mentioned no rear camera. It picks up fingerprints, but not too bad. And build quality seems really, really solid, which is something I didn't necessarily expect with this machine. So a pleasant surprise, no question about that. And overall, just really impressed with what Dell has done here. It's not something that I necessarily expected from them, not because they have fallen behind, which admittedly they have in some instances, but more so just because this is one of those machines that I would be impressed if it was coming from any manufacturer. Sony started the trend to a degree, but here Dell is kind of hitting it in stride. So really like the overall design here. And, you know, the fact that you do, of course, have those two USB 3.0 ports and a headphone jack. I mean, it all just seems like a tablet. There's your power port for charging if you aren't using the dock like we are here. And the USB 3.0 ports, of course, you can do several things with. You can really take that and, you know, connect to hub, do pretty much anything that you would want to. You do have the capacitive button here at the bottom, like most Windows 8 tablet experiences. Really, this does remind me, and I'll say it over and over again, of a Surface Pro, just in an 18.4-inch form factor. And the fact that Microsoft, since this, you know, you can pick this up from the Microsoft Store and then enjoy it really in a completely different OS installation, because the OS will be Microsoft's Signature Edition, then it sort of almost does become a Surface Pro, in my opinion. Let me go ahead and bring that in a little bit closer. So hopefully this has given you a fairly solid idea of what to expect here from this machine. Let me go ahead and just plug back in one of my USB keys so I actually get back some functionality here, but I'm going to use the touch screen now as well for some browsing, so you can see what that performance is like. And it is really solid. That's part of what I love about it, is that while I just showed through the course of 30 some odd minutes how it, you know, operates as just a regular desktop, as soon as you want to be reminded that you are actually working with a tablet, you're doing it. And the speed is there. I'll do a little video playback as well. Let's go over to YouTube. Let's see. I will take you, see if I have anything recent to show. See here, a little more practical for me to actually use the mouse. But let's go to my channel. And let's go ahead and look at a video. I'll go ahead and crank up the volume as well.
The holidays like the U.S. Postal Service. With improved priority mail flat rate, just print a label, schedule a pickup, and return those gifts for the same low flat rate.
All right, let me show you some HD playback. Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick comparison between the Microsoft Surface Pro 2 tablet on the left and the Samsung Galaxy Note 10.1 2014 edition. Now, professionals doing photo editing, graphic design, because they can go much farther with higher resolution, even though I'm in a mobile screen. You know, here if you know that you can get away with everything that's offered by the Galaxy Note 10. So you can see very little buffering here. Performance is really solid. So just, you know, this again speaks to everything that the XPS 18 tries to do. It tends to do well. And I haven't really run into any sort of issues with hardware, as I mentioned before, with regard to quality control. No crashing or any abnormal behavior with the touch screen. And that's something that you often do have to worry about when you're dealing with a device like this. The touch screen could be one of those things where all of a sudden, you know, you do have a problem. And the fact that this has been so responsive, that's part of when I mentioned comparing this to machines of days past, especially all-in-ones, that they really didn't have that responsiveness. And that's part of what made them actually unpleasant to use. And here you just don't have it. And you don't have the buffering, despite being, again, not or lacking dual band or AC. So, and I can credit my router. I do have a very solid one, but still, even having a solid router doesn't mean necessarily that the hardware here would match. So Dell making sure to keep, you know, faith in the XPS name, make sure the customers are actually paying that premium for a quality product, and they do get it. If I jump back to the actual Metro interface here, the live tile system, you can see pretty bare, and that's because, again, this is the Microsoft install. If you get this from Dell, there will be more bloatware, no question about it. But overall, really like this system. Just it has so much going for it. You know, I didn't talk about the actual Microsoft Store and buying applications for this because realistically, I don't think anyone is buying any of the Windows 8.1 hybrids really for what Microsoft has in their store. It's more of for the ability to have a Windows 8.1 computer that just also happens to be able to replace the tablet that they used to have to carry in addition to their laptop. At least that's where I'm coming from, a little bit of my own editorial here. But overall, the XPS 18 just really hits every mark that you could possibly ever want from an all-in-one, and then more importantly, in my opinion, an 18.4-inch Windows tablet. And I think that's a much bigger selling point than just the all-in-one selling point that really is, in my opinion, so far, the primary marketing structure for this device. So for me, things that I dislike about this, since I've given so much praise over almost 40 minutes about this all-in-one tablet, frankly really come down to things that I just expect because I get them on far less expensive devices. So I discussed video out. Yep, that's something that I really would have liked to have seen on this machine. There's really no excuse for missing that, simply because it's certainly large enough, and even though it's very thin and lightweight, I can't imagine that throwing an HDMI out, especially a micro HDMI out, would have stretched things or made any sort of difference in the actual form factor. But I'm not an engineer for Dell, so it's just food for thought. Beyond that, of course, I wish we had dual band Wi-Fi. That's something that would have been fantastic, but considering how well the chipset in here performs, I can't really fault the current configuration. With regard to the processor, look, if we had Haswell instead of Ivy Bridge at launch, it would have been great. In fact, considering this came out 7 months ago, that really should have been in there. No excuse. I mean, they could have, if they had to, even held off in order to get it out there. But this is a flagship device, not just for Dell, but also for Microsoft in showing off Windows 8. And I think we all understand why. It's just a beautiful piece of kit. But beyond that, it's something where you are paying a very steep premium for this piece of kit, and to miss some of these things, specifically, again, that dual band Wi-Fi, it just should have been there. You do get wireless display. That's to offset your lack of HDMI out or any video out altogether. The USB ports, I would have liked to have seen another, but a hub does rectify that, but in essence also negates the quality of having such a clean look like the XPS 18 delivers in a form factor and footprint that you won't find from any other manufacturer or competing product. Battery life also above and beyond, and if we had Haswell, of course, battery life would have been better. Probably looking at 6 hours instead of that 4 to maybe a little bit more. Also, beyond that, 10% more in performance with Haswell. That, to me, I think for the average user buying this is irrelevant when it comes to the price point. If you can save $500 buying this machine when Haswell does get launched in the refresh of the XPS 18, I recommend saving the money unless you really need that 25% gain in battery life, 10% in CPU performance, and of course marginal, maybe 5% performance increase in graphics moving up to the 4400, because everything else is going to be relatively the same. I don't expect them to deviate from the design. It's spot on. It works well. The camera is fine. It's really meant for video conferencing, not for your photography hobby, so keep that in mind. That's why there's no rear camera. This is a computer. That's all it's meant to be. It just also happens to be a tablet, as I've mentioned over and over again. So it is a dynamo, in my opinion. I really like the fact that I can just pick it up, take it to any room in the house. I personally, right now, haven't been using it outside a lot, meaning traveling with it, but I could see why it would be great for all different fields, from both a professional standpoint as well as a personal standpoint, for gaming, and just being able to, whether you're traveling and you want to be able to watch a movie, I would much rather take something like this where you get a great amount of screen real estate and audio video performance, and even light gaming if you hook up a USB controller. Not that you need that while you're on vacation. I certainly don't, but there are some of you out there that want that, instead of taking that laptop that weighs 12 pounds. And of course, yeah, you see where I'm going. I mean, that's the different element, different aspect that this machine really brings to the table than anything else out there. Forget about all-in-ones. This isn't an all-in-one. This is a whole new breed of computer. So hopefully Dell looks to just augment this, improve it, beef it up, because if this were to actually give me the ability to game at another level, even with $1,000 premium above its current price, I think that it would sell. I think that since Dell has Alienware, no reason that we really shouldn't see an Alienware slate like this, especially with the Steam relationship growing now. A Steam slate, a Steam tablet. Dell, if you want to hire me to help you develop this, I'll be glad to. I think that there is a market for this, and I think most of you out there will agree. So even though this is meant to be like mom's or grandma's computer, or just the family computer for this, the small kids to play on, in my opinion, there is so much more to what the XPS 18 has to offer. So I think I've made it abundantly clear that I like this machine a lot. It is pricey for what you get. That I think is the one area where things have to improve. But part of that is the engineering and the fact that it is the first of its kind. You're not going to find anything like it. That's why I spent so long in this video at the beginning stressing that, because I think a lot of people look at this and say, why on earth would I want this? And hopefully I've provided enough reasons. Again, when it comes to the different fields, medical, real estate, so many things, interior design, there's architectural, there's so many different things. Again, as I said, photography, really this can be used anywhere. And even when I think about just in businesses, any sort of administrative work where you've got people who've got traditional computers in front of them. These are power efficient machines that are flexible and really do exactly what you need in at least an administrative environment, something where you aren't trying to photo, video edit, do heavy tasks, or of course, as I mentioned before, heavy gaming. So really just a lot to like here. I've mentioned most of my dislikes, but they're really not dislikes. They're just ideas for the next generation, because as I mentioned before, this is a first gen product. I expect Dell to improve upon it. Maybe even, as I mentioned, maybe Alienware will bless us with something similar, but even better, maybe a 20-incher that weighs only 7 pounds. I don't know. It seems that if this is the starting point, only good things are in the future. And really, there's just more to like here than dislike. And Windows 8.1 is great for those of you unfamiliar with it. The new Start button, even though it's a Windows button, far more powerful than anything before. And I never really had a problem with Windows 8. Those of you out there that did, I think, really just didn't give it a chance. And 8.1 plus some marketing and general positive feedback seems to have brought a lot more people back to Windows in the tablet form, as well as the brand new Ultrabook lineups that they're constantly pushing. So 8.1 runs beautifully here. Again, battery life, incredible considering what this is, because battery life would generally never even be a discussion for a device like this. But overall, really enjoy this machine. Bluetooth connectivity works well. Wi-Fi connectivity, as you've already seen, very solid. And it just works and redefines expectations, at least for me, of what a computer looks like in 2014. Even though this did launch in 2013, things are only going to get better, as I continuously point out. So hope you all enjoyed this full in-depth review of the Dell XPS 18. Again, it's a great machine, tremendous amount of potential, and in my opinion, if you're on the fence, get off of it, because there's nothing else like it, and until there is, you're just losing out on time that you could be enjoying this machine. Because one thing that I'll re-emphasize here to close things out is that it is incredibly fun to use this. Whether, again, you're on the bed, on the couch, or it's just being used in a desktop form. The fact that the touchscreen is so responsive, it's just fantastic. And there's a reason. Dell really did put some time into putting this together. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. And of course, as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.